Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. Have you ever wondered what the benefits of homeschooling are? Have you ever thought that children who are homeschooled are missing out on socialization with their peers? If you've ever been curious about homeschooling, you'll want to listen to this episode with Hattie-Angelys Fox, where she talks about why homeschooling was the right choice for her family. Recently diagnosed as autistic, Hattie-Angelys Fox is a certified teacher, a board-certified behavior analyst, and the mother of 2 neurodivergent children. Through her consulting services at Naturally Effective Behavior, Angelys offers a variety of support for individuals and families, including ABA, behavioral support, education and advocacy, educational enrichment, parent training, and professional development. In this conversation, among other things, we discuss what it was like for Angelys to receive her autism diagnosis as an adult, struggles with her peers growing up, a toxic relationship from high school, finding true partnership with her husband, and why Angelys decided to homeschool her children. In this episode, discover what's possible when you can make mistakes safely. And now I present you, Hattie-Angelys Fox.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to share anything that could benefit anyone. Hattie-Angelys Fox. I am located in the USA, in New York, on Long Island. I have worked with individuals with autism spectrum disorder or autistic individuals since 1999. I've served as a paraprofessional, as a respite provider, a res hab provider, a TA, a teacher, a home educator, and now a BCBA. The field has touched my life in a million ways, including ones that are personal. And there are members of my own household who are formally diagnosed and suspected of also being autistic.
Right. When did you learn about your autism?
Actually, last year, semi by accident, semi not by accident. So brilliantly, the way our community is, then technology has blessed us with the ability to get together. And working closely with an autistic BCBA and autism advocate in casual conversation, it came up more than once, his suspicion of my neurodivergence, quite innocently, actually, adding me to a neurodivergent behavior analyst group and missing the hey, by the way, I don't have a diagnosis. And we just kept connecting. And then I asked him more directly, and that began a process of working with people who've known me my whole life, people who I have very intimate connections with, my best friend, my husband, my childhood caregiver, and my personal physician. And it took about 9 months to assess through because adult diagnosis is a lot more difficult to ascertain.
And what was that process like of discovering that about yourself?
At first, it was a surprise. Being somebody that has always had a very intact vocal verbal repertoire, going back to early infancy, which is atypical. Babies babbling as if they're having conversation at 2 months. And the descriptions of autism that I'd always been given being that it was a profound impairment in vocal verbal ability. My brain didn't match those, and apparently neither did most people's brains. So, it was something that was surprising at first because it was well, how does this diagnostic criterion match this lived experience? But the further I dug into it, the more it actually started to alleviate a lot of places where nothing else had been able to provide understanding. A myriad of psychological experiences with mental health practitioners or looking into various self-help things or attempting to, nothing had ever made things make sense. And so it was not a long period of time where there was maybe no. It was okay, well, if yes, how does this piece work? Or how does that piece work? And continuing to explore from there. So overall, it was, relatively relieving, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine there's that validation, right?
Yeah.
Could you go back to something you mentioned about things not working? So what were some struggles that you might have had growing up that led you to feel kind of confused?
So ever since early childhood, I have struggled to interact with same-aged peers. I wrote it off for a while. I started school a year early because, most people do, right? Then it was moving schools. So I was like, oh, maybe it's because I just moved schools. But every memory I have in preschools and daycares, I was always choosing the alone activity. I didn't know how to play with the kids or talk about the things that they wanted to talk about. It wasn't that I couldn't talk. I could talk to the adults all day, actually. I remember in elementary school, I had transitioned out of private school and into elementary school. I was not assessed on an IQ test, so they didn't track me. And I was in the 1980s in New York, where you had your remedial track, usually 2 or 3 groupings of children that were within the average limits, and then one track of children who were considered above average limits. And I was not put into that class. I was in the normative range, but within a few weeks of school, they recognized my academic performance was mismatched to my peers, and they started letting me take classes with the gifted kids. Well, I hadn't spent all my time with them, and I still even wasn't interacting with them well. And I would come back into class and be made fun of or teased because I had been missing things and was still getting scores that were higher than them. And I was just believed that performance was what was supposed to be the marker for school, So my performance was great, and I felt great about myself, and I was intimidating my peers in doing that. It became such a problem that a series of children reported to the principal that I had spread rumors in the school, which I did not do. And I was given my only detention of my elementary career. And I remember even getting mad at the principal when he walked back. He said, "You didn't say anything the entire time." I said, "You never asked me what happens." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "You never even bothered to find out if what they said was true," which it wasn't. They're mad at me because I continue to score higher than them. And I continue to be able to go on field trips that they can't go on. And I remember that really clearly. And that was like one of those points where it's like, okay, make sure you keep your grades low enough that you don't intimidate your peers, but high enough that you don't get in trouble at home. I don't have the experience where anyone else has ever really tried to moderate their grades
Yeah.
in order to socially match, but I did.
Mm-hmm. Did you eventually make friends like later on in high school?
I had people around me that I could have time with in school, but not particularly, no. Especially not what I would look at as a healthy friendship or things that were connected. And I returned to private school, so performance was way more important, which took that pressure off for me. I wasn't trying to control for my performance anymore. I was allowed to kind of excel, but I still didn't have intact peer relationships. I tended towards upperclassmen. So when the people who I was connected to graduated and I was left with same-aged peers, it was a pretty lonely year. So I just took a course overload. I let my brain enjoy learning stuff.
Yeah.
Which is often a relief for me. People say I don't know how to relax, but because my relaxation looks very busy to them.
Mm-hmm. And eventually you met your partner and
Mhm.
now you're married?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that kind of dating process like for you? Or, sometimes autistic people say that it's hard.
Yeah. So I had been able to partner with other people at normative ages, but they were not healthy connections. I dated a gentleman when I was in high school. He was the star football player at a different school in a district that was not close to my home. Very attractive to most people. I don't know, honestly, if I was attracted to him because I got attention or because I was attracted to him. I still to this day don't know those answers, but it was a very controlling, in all honesty, abusive relationship. Yet I had a relationship and I was willing to pay the price of it to be normative. And when I say abusive things, yes, his hands were on me. Yes, consent was not always a part of our interactions. He would take my glasses if I was not, really attentive enough. And at the time, I was ocularly dependent on my glasses. So I say not healthy.
Yeah.
And yet from the outside, we looked like a physically attractive couple. And this is the star football player who might be getting a scholarship. Like it had all the prestige. And so I tolerated it. I also tolerated it because I did not have healthy connections and I hadn't had an experience of those. And it's not because my parents didn't love me. I mean, it's just way more complicated than that. I left that relationship and I ended up with someone much closer to home. He did genuinely care about me as a person. His our socioeconomics did not match, and the psychosocial stressors of his home were very toxic for him. And we ended up trying to protect each other. And teenagers trying to adult in a world that is not designed for them to adult is still not healthy. So that relationship deteriorated, which it needed to. It was fine. It was very, very, very physical. And so when I met my husband at 19, I was very clear with him that I would not be having a very physical upfront relationship. And we spent months talking. It was a lot of going to lunches and just wanting to be near each other. We met at university at Nassau County Community College. He was there because his parents demanded he have a 4-year degree, and I was there because it was the cheap way to get my marine biology 4 credits because I was going for a science major. And I had actually just begun to work with the very first autistic human that I knowingly worked with. And, it was a lot of time. It was ebbing and flowing and getting to know each other, but we always just felt better together. The world could be chaos for us, but if we were with each other, we felt safer. And listen, there's times I dysregulate and it's caused problems in our relationship throughout the years. There's been times that he's dysregulated and it's caused problems in our relationship throughout the years, but we find each other as home. And I know it sounds so cliche and over romantic, but like the world can turn off if I'm with him. The hard can turn off. The sensory assault goes away. I can trust him to guide me. If I can't handle how bright a space is, I can close my eyes and know I'm going to cross the street safely. If he's struggling with something, we have different diagnoses, but if he's struggling with something, I can step into that place usually. And again, going to sound silly and romantic and cliche, but my love for him can allow me to override my struggle.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And you're very lucky.
I am. I'm extremely lucky.
Yeah.
I think it's our differences that make us stronger, but it's the ways that we're similar that bring us together. And as an adult, that's what I've tried to do. I web with people who have a similarity to me, whether it's a similar passion or drive or goal or intention. And then I try to see the ways in which our differences, because we are all different, can kind of knit us together, creating something that's way more, resilient than I am by myself.
Yeah. Right. And that's like true partnership, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Rachel here. Do you know anyone else who might benefit from this episode? Maybe a parent who's considering if homeschooling is right for their child? I encourage you to share this episode if you'd like to help them out. And now, back to the conversation. Okay, and your children are homeschooled, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why did you guys make that decision?
So my oldest was born in 2011, and my husband had a stay-at-home mom. It was super important to him. And with my career, staying home is really not hard. I can flex around a lot of things. I can treat children or adults or, I have a lot of availability. So no worries. And by about 6 months, my daughter was showing a right hand dominance. And for those who don't know development, that is extremely atypical. Hand dominance does not emerge until about 3 years old. So I went to her pediatrician and I was like, explain this. And he's like, you're wrong. And I was like, the problem is I'm not wrong. The problem is that it's there and we need to figure out why. And he didn't want to explore it for a little while. Fine. So I just kept working with her, trying to see if I could get her to cross midline, like trying to undo it. I am an early childhood educator. I'm an early childhood specialist. And not only is she not crossing midline with the left hand or using the left hand, at least at all, until it does cross midline, but now I'm watching these words explode way early. She tries to skip crawling, which is not actually a good thing. Occupational therapists and other motor therapists will tell you there's some neurobilateral stuff that crawling gives you. So now I'm slowing her down there, but she's still exploding. I mean, the language is coming in fast, but I'm watching her sensory system get overloaded too. It's like she could process all the stuff going on and she could take it in and she could learn it, but she couldn't regulate it. She had no ability to dial that sensory system for herself. Turns out she has strabismus. It's a genetic ocular condition. So we start dealing with the eye thing. Great. By 2 years old, she's still flying. I mean, I've got a fluent reader who's toilet trained in about 4 days, who is able to answer comprehension questions on literature. I'm pulling her out of chapter books. Like, I tried to do bedtime stories with her. We're reading Little House on the Prairie. She's finding it, climbing, getting it, finishing the book while I'm at work. So we were like, all right, let's try. We looked for a private school initially. We were thinking of Montessori because of the individualized learning aspects of it, but also that they won't slow somebody down. So you'll be in a 3, 4, 5 room or 4, 5, 6 room, but they'll bring stuff down from the next room. They'll keep you with your same age peers, but let you work on harder work. And I really wanted to protect the social piece for her. We couldn't afford it. There was a new school opening near us. We tried that. I live in an attachment parented household, so my children were extended breastfeed. My children were co-bedded. At this point, she is sleeping in her own bed, but when she wakes up and she's upset, she would come to our bed to be soothed, and everyone could get the most sleep of the night. I let the school know, there's nothing you're teaching her in this year that she doesn't already know. I want this to be a gentle transition. I will pay full tuition for let her stay as long as she wants, and let's see what happens. And then when she's ready to leave, let her leave. I can't leave the premises anyway, even though she's toilet trained. This is a school and she's only 2. So if she were to have an accident, I had to physically change her. Schools can't do that part. Preschools can, daycares can't, schools can. It's just the New York State laws.
Okay.
So just give her to me if she's distraught. If I can get her calm, she'll go back in. If she's done for the day, we'll aim for 5 minutes more the next day. Easy. Talk to them all summer. Within 2 years, my daughter jumped out of bed the first day of school, threw on her clothes, threw on her backpack. She was so excited. She was so happy. 2 weeks later, she is crying for the 45 minutes of getting dressed, crying for the 2 hours of school, and crying for the 2 hours after school. Now, I'm very connected to the natural community here on Long Island. That includes birth doulas and birthing centers, and some things that are pseudoscientific, and some things that are alternative scientific, and some things that are evidenced in Europe and all over the world, but just not the United States. In that community, you have to be very, very careful what you choose to do and how you choose to go about it. But I have some amazing connections there. And one of my friends brought me to a Holistic Mom Network meeting where the president of a homeschooling organization in Long Island was presenting. One conversation with that gentleman, and the very next day I withdrew my daughter from school. And especially with my certifications, although you do not need them to homeschool well, I knew I had a lot of confidence in what I was doing, because this is literally my ball game, right? Like 0 to grade 3, she's 2. We got years. Like, if I can't do this, I got years that you're solidly under my education license, and then we'll try something else. Maybe I have to save for something. I didn't know what the answer was at that point. I just knew what we were doing was emotionally traumatic, and I didn't have her to traumatize her.
Yeah, right.
And I had the privilege to know that. I recognize it's also a privilege.
Mm-hmm. And she's 11 now?
She'll be 12 this month.
Okay.
Yep.
And how is she doing?
She's doing phenomenal. She's got friends who crave her time and attention. She's got a D&D group. She's got peers who are slightly older than her, same age, younger. She just went to a homeschool dance 2 weeks ago. She loves archery and is the youngest ballerina in her point class, and is currently discussing the age of radiation and age of matter as it relates to the Big Bang Theory. That's the essay I've got to review. She's coding in JavaScript, and today she'll go to the park, and you would never know that she wasn't just a 12-year-old.
Amazing. And that, I think, is maybe it's a misconception, but it's something that a lot of people believe when they hear homeschool, right? They're like, well, what about the social skills? How are the kids going to learn from their peers? So what did you do, or what do you do to make that happen? Do you seek out outside groups? You mentioned a homeschool dance.
Yeah, so there's a lot of communities, right? There's 1,000 paths for 1,000 needs. We all do all of our things for so many different reasons. There are religious homeschooling groups. There are people who homeschool because they strongly disagree with the regulations of the local systems. There are people who homeschool because it's always what's been done for them. There's all the reasons. And in this age of social media, just like we're on 2 different continents right now, you can connect with people with like values and like ideas. And here on Long Island, we have a very dense, very rich homeschool community. We work with our local business owners. So we have classes during the day. As I said, archery. The archery range opens up 1 hour early for us 3 times a week. There are 3 different homeschool classes. And we're actually paying a discount rate because that's a time where that building is still open and it's still up. I mean, they physically own the building. They're paying the rent. It's operational. It's a small family run business. So for them, it's what? Have lunch a little earlier. And they're going to make a class worth of kids. We're paying about $20 less because we're able to use their facility during a time that's low demand. We all, just like in other spaces, the kids tend to form their own more insular groups. So we tend to be closer to certain families than others. But every Thursday, the local state park, there's a homeschool meetup. And when I say meetup, like the kids are playing together for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. They might go for a hike, and the handful that are Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts are like, oh, this is how you do this thing, or this is how you do that thing. Or we might ask them to teach like the littles. Would you want to teach like about leaving no trace or like how we would protect the wilderness? We might ask someone who is super passionate about plants to help us identify poison ivy as it's starting to wake up. So not only are they interacting with each other, but they are actively teaching each other. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the oldest kid. The most knowledgeable kid about poison ivy might be 7. And that high schooler is like, wait. Is this one poison ivy or is that one? Which one do I want to touch? And like, so they're learning to learn from people who know.
Yeah.
We have the blessing of being able to go places at times that other people don't go. So there's a local park. When I say local, to me, it's about a block away. We have a botanical garden in that park. And my town head horticulturist is almost always at that botanical garden. My children befriended her 3 years ago. We now help take care of it. And last year we grew over 800 pounds of food with the help of the community and at the direction of our botanist or our horticulturist. And that was donated to people in need.
Oh, I love that.
And my children, right, have been part of those. They planted the peas and they helped take care of those tomatoes. And we're pulling down that. And because their grandfather actually has volunteered at the food pantry where it goes since before they were both born, my family is entrusted to be allowed to carry things from the garden and bring them over to the food pantry. It's not something the pantry usually allows because they want to make sure that the person bringing in fresh produce hasn't harmed it in any way. They don't want the community that's going to receive it, but they know who we are because they know the grandfather and they know that we're working with the horticulturist who's growing for them. And so my children are able to step into an important gap. Sometimes there's so much. We just load it up in my minivan and then we go see Miss Yvette and we drop it off and we're putting it away as well. So they're seeing the roles that they would play in community. And I think that is a really, really beneficial lesson, but they're also interacting with the woman who runs the local food pantry. And they sometimes go there and they help organize it. And so they're interacting with the impoverished among us who are in need of being given the support so that they can have successful lives. We've organized the clothing room so that people can go in and find beautiful things to wear, to feel good about themselves and to feel clean, and maybe even apply for a job. They've helped select toys to give during holidays and times of giving. They've made cake sheets, and they've done that with a local Girl Scout troop. My daughter's friends who are dancers did soda cakes. I don't know if you know this, but apparently in America, there are certain sodas that when you mix them with a box of cake mix, like that's all you need. It's all the wet ingredients. It will actually make the cake.
Okay.
So we would, it's not my food tip, but you know what? So we would buy the aluminum baking pans and a box of cake mix and soda and candles and icing, and then wrap the whole thing. And we would give them to the food pantry so that if someone's birthday had come up, they could pull these sheets and say, here, have a birthday cake then. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to do all sorts of fun stuff. And it's constant community.
Yeah, that's so important. Do you guys plan to continue this throughout high school as well?
All we ever know is we're homeschooling next year.
Okay.
My son has more profound needs than my daughter. They are both considered special education children, but for various reasons. My son has support educators that we work with every year. I give them carte blanche. Tell me anything you want. No holds barred. Don't worry about hurting my feelings. What do you think he needs? And we just actually had that conversation. My son will definitely be continuing. My daughter will be continuing as well for next year. But at any point in time, I might change them. right now, my daughter is tracked to graduate early. So she's been doing high school classes for about 2 years. She started in her high school English classes because that's her area of excellence. She's a little bit above grade level in math, and then most things she's floating someplace between 2 and 3 grades above. So I'm probably going to tighten her schooling up next year and really track her to finish high school early so she can dual enroll. And what that would mean is that she would be taking at high school age college classes.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few universities here in New York that would allow her to virtually attend so it can protect her innocence and not throw a 13-year-old onto campus, because that doesn't sound safe.
Yeah.
And it's like $20 up front. We like the grade, we pay for the 300 for the credit, and then those become transcript credits for her. And so she'll actually be pulling those classes as her high school classes, which means she'll finish somewhere around 16 with probably an associate's and be able to enter her 4-year institution at 17 as a junior.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Does she have aspirations for careers?
She loves literature. She devours books. She would often jokes that she'd like me to leave her in a library and just with a sack of avocados and some water, she'll be fine. She promises. She's looking somewhere in the library, a media specialist area, but she also is a history buff. She and I are currently watching on YouTube. Dr. Joanne Freeman has her Yale class on the American Revolution. So we are currently watching Yale professors teach about the American Revolution. And that is her favorite time period. She has strong opinions about most of the founders. She will tell you that John Adams' wife was really the founder, not John Adams. She just needed his masculinity, and can support this. So, she floats. I think she will end up as an archivist. That's where I think she will end up. I think Library of Congress Archives is probably going to get somebody who will just hang out all day, build her a room. She'll be fine. But she floats around. She's not sure. Library media specialist. She's currently, her and a friend are writing a horror book. They had started a fantasy book before. So she's writing already. She loves words. When she did her middle school civics class in 4th grade and comprised a poem about American democracy that is now the sample poem. As I said, this class is for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. She was in grade 4. She wrote what the New York State Historical Society now uses as their sample poem.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
And like I said, at the end of the day, when she's with her friends, she's just a little girl.
Yeah. It's good to keep that balance.
Yep. She just wants to know if her dress looks cute enough. Is she fashion forward enough? But don't, not too tight. And
Yeah.
She's just a kid.
Yeah.
So that was the why. It was homeschooling was the only way I could figure out to protect all of her. Mm-hmm. Legal obligation to keep your kids safe. But I don't think it just means their bodies. It's their minds, it's their hearts, it's their feelings, it's their hopes, it's their dreams, and it's their memories of themselves.
Yeah.
It's not my job to not let her make mistakes. She has to. It's my job to let her make safe mistakes.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with one person who you think will find value in it too. By doing so, you'll be helping us to improve access to autism services around the world. Thanks for listening. Take care.